There's a statistic in the business transition world. It's been out there for a long time. And I know it gets talked about, but sometimes I don't know if it gets talked about enough or if the impact is actually realized by owners. Only about 1/3 of businesses successfully make it into the next generation. So if you look around to your friends, look around to the people that are in your community. How well are those businesses going to be transitioned, and how many are really going to make it? And statistically, 2/3 are not going to make it. They're not going to be in business. And they don't make it because the business wasn't valuable, or because maybe it wasn't profitable, or because people didn't care about it, but they don't make it because the transition itself failed. And that's the problem that we built this concept of Transition 3.0 to solve. So this 70% failure rate, what's really going on with that? This is my experience over 30 years, that when transitions fail, we tend to blame the usual suspects, like it was bad timing, or bad market conditions, or maybe it was a family conflict that made it fall apart, or maybe it was the person or people that took it over. They just made bad decisions and they didn't know what they were doing. And all of those could be true, but underneath most of those failures is something that's very fundamental. And I think that is that the people who needed to carry the business forward were never potentially truly brought in to the process. They were more handed a potential plan, or maybe even they found out at death, or maybe they were told what would happen and just expected to make it work. There's been an evolution of transition planning. And I think we're going in the right direction. So if you think about Transition 1.0, by our definition, that's when an owner designs the transition. They design the plan. They design it with their advisors behind the scenes, and it actually is executed at death. So the successor finds out when it happens. And you can think of a business as an active business and an owner that held on a little bit too long. You can think of it as just family assets. Many times those family assets get truly transacted at death. And sometimes that's not a bad strategy. What I'm saying is the bad strategy is that the owner doesn't really tell anybody. And when they do, the plan is solid because all of the work, all the estate, all of the tax, all of that work has already been done in a vacuum, not including the people who are taking it over. That's the issue. So Transition 2.0, still owner designed, and the transitioner basically informs that successor group or the successor what will happen. This is how it'll happen. And when they do that, they actually tell the successors what will happen before it gets too late and before, death. But again, the successor is really handed this item. In Transition 1.0 and 2.0, that model's more like a transfer of an asset instead of a full transition of an asset. And again, that transfer, I believe that those transfers, they do fail at a very high rate. Mostly because the successors, one, aren't bought in, and two, they are not ready because they haven't been brought in a little bit earlier and they don't have buy-in. So both of those models have a bit of a flaw, where one person selects the destination and then everybody else is expected to do what? Everybody else is expected to follow. In Transition 3.0, it's different at the foundation. So in 3.0, you design the transition of the assets in a collective process. And you could include family members that are in the business or interested in the business, And you also can include family members who are not, who may be wanting to be part of the strategy and the planning and know what's going on, but may not be active. And that's okay. So it's a collective process. The owner does the work, of course. They know where they're going and they build the roadmap, but they build it with their successors in mind and potentially inviting them into the work at the right time so that those successors are heard and that the design fits into their lives and into their relationships, into how they want to be a family, how they want to be brothers and sisters, how they want the business to move forward or the assets. So, not to rubber stamp it, but to actually engage with it. They can shape it and they get to own it alongside you. And that's that 3.0 kind of a concept. So, what does that actually look like? And what does it not require? There's a misconception here that I think is worth clearing up. You don't even have to know your successor to start your Transition 3.0 process. And the work actually does begin with the owner. And I'm a good example of that. I did not know my successor when I started designing my process. And when I started, I had a 10-year vision. I knew some foundational things. I knew that I wanted the business to go on. I knew that the work that I'd done and the intellectual property that I had built, I did not want to put it in a drawer and never have it seen again. To me, that would have been a failure of some of the work that I'd done, some of my life work. And so I started it without knowing who my successor was. 2 years later, I find her. And 2 years later, I had that work done. So what mattered was that I had done the work. I knew my direction. I had a roadmap. So when she came in, that right person came into view, then I was ready. I could invite her into something real, not something like, hey, do you want to be an owner someday? But something real that I'm interested in. Would you be interested? And could we have a real conversation? Successors, they can come in at the beginning. You might have them already selected, or your kids might already be working in the business, but they can also come in partway through. So what I did is I shared my roadmap with her, and it was very clear to her how she could fit into that. So a plan that's been built and not just imagined is important, and a direction that's been chosen and not just assumed. Those are things that I think are important in this concept of Transition 3.0, and also in exploring as an owner, even if you don't know your successor yet, what do you want? And what kind of a successor is going to be able to help you live your life and help this business do well? So why 3.0 changes the numbers? Really good question. When successors are invited into the work, when they understand the why, and it's a collective why, so they're included in that, they understand what is being transitioned, they understand who's involved, they understand some of the many whens of transition of job, governance, and also equity, and they know the how and what success looks like and how much they're going to have to bring forward to do it. There's a fundamental difference. They aren't just inheriting a plan and being told what to do. They're continuing a conversation that they've been a part of for a while. There's no moment where they open up a document and find out what was decided for them. There's actual ownership in it, and there's alignment, and there's a trust that has been built over time and not assumed at the last minute. And all of that work that they're coming into, even though they may not know or understand all of it, because their learning curve is higher, they are working through those problems. They are being exposed to those issues, and they are learning every single step of the way. And if you're a parent, it's awesome to watch your kid grow and develop and to work together. not in a tension situation where, well, when are you going to give up some assets to me? And how come you haven't already done it? You made a promise, those kinds of things, but more along the lines of understanding, alignment, working together in a great, great way. It's not a better legal structure. It's not a smarter financial plan. It's a process that actually brings people together around a shared direction as either before or as the transition happens, because we all know the transition hopefully is a journey and not an event. The businesses that make it to the next generation, they aren't just lucky. They did the work and they did it together. Transition 3.0 is how you become a part of the 1/3. And what my hope is that 1/3 success statistic starts to turn into half, that half of them make it, and then 3/4 of them make it. And we can flip that statistic completely over to where a majority of businesses successfully transition into a next generation. And giving people time to learn, time for the transitioner to shift and change their behavior, for the successor to grow into a very, very big role, not just as maybe CEO and running this company, but as owner and as the one who has to have the resources to sign on the bank and the one who has to understand all the taxes and all the tax implications and the legal implications and the risk of business and, putting in capital and needing money to grow and cash flow. And gosh, there's just so much to take on by not trying to move fast, but by making sure you're all moving in the same direction and giving yourself time. That's how you are a part of the 1/3. That's how you create success in a business transition. So I want to invite you to come and look at our Evolve program. It's on our website, www.transitionstrategists.com. And our program, it's easy, it's simple, it's 12 months, and it's built to be virtual so that your successors, you can all come in and over a period of time, not only build out your roadmap, but even start to implement some big things in that year. It's a wonderful program, so check it out.